Here is something I should probably just admit up front. The script you are listening to right now, these exact words in my voice, started life as a draft written with an AI model, and I am guessing it does not sound like it, or at least I have worked very hard so that it does not. That is the whole thing I want to talk about today. Not whether you should use AI to write, because plenty of people already do and pretend they do not, but how you actually use it so the result still sounds like a person who thought about something, instead of that flat, polished, faintly hollow voice you can now smell from a mile away. I write scripts with AI almost every day, and I have a fairly strong opinion about where it genuinely helps and where it quietly ruins your writing if you let it. No hype, no doom, just the real workflow. First, where AI actually helps. Let me be fair to the tool before I start picking on it, because the help is real. The biggest thing a model does for me is beat the blank page. A blank document is genuinely the hardest part of writing anything, and the model will cheerfully fill it with something, anything, in seconds. That first ugly draft is not good, but it is infinitely easier to fix bad words than to summon good ones from nothing. There is a strange psychological trick in there too. Once there are words on the page, even bad ones, my brain switches from the panicked job of inventing to the much calmer job of reacting. And reacting is something I am good at. I can look at a clumsy sentence and instantly know it is wrong, even when I could not have told you in advance what right looked like. The model gives me something to react to, and that alone is worth a lot. The second thing it does well is structure. If I have a messy pile of thoughts about a topic, I can dump them in and ask for a rough order, and it will usually hand me back a sensible spine. I almost never keep that structure exactly, but it gets me arguing with something instead of staring at white space. Arguing is productive. Staring is not. The third real win is tightening. Once I have a paragraph that says the right thing in too many words, a model is great at proposing a shorter version, and sometimes that shorter version is genuinely better than mine. I will write a bloated, rambling sentence, paste it in, and ask for it half as long, and often what comes back is sharper than what I would have managed on my own in that moment. So, first drafts, rough structure, and tightening. Those three are where it earns its keep, and I use it for all three without any guilt at all. Now, where it absolutely cannot help. But here is the part the breathless threads always skip. There is a whole category of things a model simply cannot do for you, and they happen to be the things that make writing worth listening to. The first is a real point of view. A model does not actually believe anything. Ask it for an opinion, and it will give you a reasonable, balanced, on the one hand, on the other hand, sort of answer, which is exactly the answer nobody remembers. A real take has a spine. It picks a side, and it is willing to be a little bit wrong to say something true. That has to come from you. The second thing it cannot do is taste. Knowing which of three decent sentences is the right one, knowing when a joke lands and when it is trying too hard, knowing what to cut. Taste is just 1,000 small judgments, and the model has no skin in any of them. The third, and maybe the biggest, is knowing what actually matters. A model will happily give equal weight to the trivial point and the important one, because to it they are just tokens. It does not feel the difference between a throwaway aside and the one line the whole piece is really about. You are the only one who knows which sentence is the reason the whole video exists, and which sentences are just there to walk you to it. That hierarchy, this matters more than that, is the most human judgment in all of writing, and it is the one the model has no access to at all. It can rank words by how likely they are to follow each other. It cannot rank them by how much they matter to you. The specifics it can never invent. And then there is the thing I care about most, which is lived specifics. A model can write you a smooth paragraph about, say, running renders on an old graphics card, but it cannot tell you about the exact night the driver died at 2 in the morning, or the precise stupid mistake you made that cost you a weekend, because it was not there. It was not anywhere. Those concrete, slightly embarrassing, specific details are what make writing feel like it came from a person who actually did the thing. The model can only ever average over what other people have already said. So the specifics, the real numbers, the actual story, the dumb thing that happened to you, all of that has to come from your own life. The moment you let the model fill those in, it reaches for the generic version, and the generic version is exactly what makes writing sound like AI. Here is a test I use on myself. If a detail in my script could have appeared, word for word, in anyone else's video on the same topic, it is not really a detail, it is wallpaper. Real specifics are unrepeatable. They belong to one person and one moment. That is precisely why they land, and precisely why a model, which is built to produce the most likely next word, can never reach for them. It is optimizing for average, and a good story is the opposite of average. So what does the AI actually smell like? Let me get concrete about that smell, because once you can name it, you can hunt it down. The first tell is cliché. Phrases like in today's fast-paced world, or in an ever-changing landscape, or the classic, it is important to note. These are filler that sounds like content. A human who cared would just say the actual thing. The second tell is hedging. A model loves to soften everything into mush. It can be argued that, some might say, results may vary. Real writing commits. The third tell is empty filler that adds words without adding meaning. Whole sentences that restate the previous sentence in slightly different clothing. The fourth is listy sameness, where every paragraph has the same shape and rhythm and length, like a spreadsheet pretending to be prose. And the fifth is over formality, that strange stiff register where nothing is ever just bad. It is suboptimal. When you start seeing these, you cannot unsee them, and that is a good thing. How I actually kill that smell. So here is my actual process, and it is honestly not clever, it is just disciplined. Step 1. I outline the thing myself, by hand, before the model ever sees it. The bones, the order, the one real point, that is mine, because that is the part the model cannot do. If I skip this step and ask the model to outline for me, I always regret it, because then I am editing its idea of the video instead of building my own. The outline is where the actual thinking happens, so I refuse to hand that part away. Step 2. I let the model draft into that outline. I give it my messy notes and my structure, and I let it produce that first ugly pass quickly. I treat that pass as raw clay, not as a finished thing, and that mindset matters more than it sounds. Step 3, and this is the one nobody wants to hear. I rewrite every single line, not skim it, not approve it. Rewrite it in my own voice, out loud in my head, until it sounds like me and not like a press release. By the time I am done, often very little of the model's actual wording survives. What survives is the speed it gave me getting there. The model wrote a draft, I wrote the script. Those are not the same job, and the gap between them is the entire point. The test that decides every line, and the single tool I lean on hardest, is embarrassingly simple. I read it aloud, or at least I say it in my head as if I were telling it to a friend across a table, and the rule is brutal. If I would not actually say this sentence to a friend, it gets cut or rewritten until I would. That one test kills almost all of the AI smell on its own, because nobody talks to a friend in the phrase in today's fast-paced world. Nobody says it is important to note out loud. The spoken version of you is naturally more honest, more specific, and a lot less stiff than the written version a model defaults to. So I let my talking voice be the editor. If it sounds like something a person would say, it stays. If it sounds like something a brochure would say, it goes. That is the whole filter, and it is more powerful than any clever prompt. And it has a nice side effect. Reading aloud catches every place the rhythm goes flat, every sentence that runs too long to breathe through, every spot where I tripped because the words were not really mine. Your mouth knows things your eyes skip right over. So even on the days I am tired and tempted to just approve the draft and move on, that one read aloud pass is the thing I never let myself skip, because it is the cheapest possible quality check and it never lies to me. A couple of honest examples. Let me show you the shape of it with a couple of real edits, because this stays abstract otherwise. The model gave me a line that reads something like, leveraging artificial intelligence can significantly enhance your content creation workflow. That is technically a sentence. It also says almost nothing, and no human has ever talked like that. I cut it to, AI makes the first draft faster, and that is most of what it is good for. Shorter, plainer, and it actually commits to a claim. Second example, the model wrote, there are many factors to consider when deciding how to approach this. That is pure hedging. The kind of sentence that fills space while saying we will get to it later. I cut it entirely, because a sentence that only promises a point is not a point. Those two moves, replacing the inflated abstraction with a plain concrete claim, and deleting the sentence that only stalls, are probably 80% of every edit I make. A few small habits that help, a few smaller habits sit underneath all of that. I never accept a whole paragraph from the model, only ever ideas and rough shapes, because accepting whole paragraphs is how the smell sneaks back in. I keep my sentences short and varied on purpose, because the model defaults to a steady medium-length drone, and breaking that rhythm instantly sounds more human. I cut adverbs and qualifiers hard, every basically and very and quite and somewhat, because they almost always weaken the line. And I try to put one concrete specific in every section. A real number, a real moment, a real name for a thing, because specifics are the fingerprints a model cannot fake. One more habit that took me a while to learn. I never edit in the same window I drafted in. I move the text somewhere clean, away from the chat, because as long as it sits in that little conversation, it still feels like the model's writing and I am too polite to it. Moved into my own document, it is just words on a page, and I am ruthless with words on a page. None of these are clever. They are just the small repeated motions that, added up, are the difference between a script and a generated artifact. So where does this leave me? So where does all of this actually leave me? Honestly, it leaves me faster. A script that used to take me most of a day now takes a few hours. And the slow part is the rewriting, which is the part that was always the real work anyway. But it does not leave me replaced, and I want to be careful and honest about that, because that is the line people love to oversell. The model did not write this. It helped me write this, which is a genuinely different sentence. The judgment about what to say, what to cut, what matters, what is true to my own experience, all of that is still entirely mine. And as far as I can tell, it is going to stay mine for a good while. The tool got faster. The taste did not transfer. And that gap, the part only you can do, is exactly where your voice lives. So use the model for the draft by all means. Then go and do the part it cannot, which is sound like yourself. And if there is one thing I would actually push back on, it is the idea that this is somehow cheating. It is not. A draft is not a script, the same way a lump of clay is not a pot. The work was never the typing. The work was always the choosing, the cutting, the deciding what is true. The model just hands you more clay, faster. What you make of it is still entirely on you. Before you go, if you found this useful, the honest version of how I actually make these is the whole point of this channel. The real process and none of the hype. So if you want more hands-on breakdowns exactly like this one, subscribe and follow along. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.